Welcome back to part two of Buying Smart, Buying Safe. Everything you've wanted to know about investing in new technology and procedures. We left off in part one talking about how do I, for my practice, how do I pick the right procedures? How do I know what's going to be hot? Where are my interests? And going through some of that criteria of figuring out what would be the best procedures in the office. Part two, today, we want to talk about choosing the technology, choosing the equipment that goes along with those procedures, that equipment that will support those procedures. So how do we go about doing that and making sure that we're doing it smart and we're doing it safe? So now we get into the purchasing process. We've established which procedures we want to offer, which indications we can treat, or those that we would like to treat. And now we're going to identify the appropriate technology. So I used to start out and say wavelength, right? Because we're talking about lasers. Now with energy source in general, this should really say energy source, but wavelength being so specific, selective photothermolysis, using the right amount of energy to get to the right target, to affect change or produce a result in that target and not affect surrounding skin cells. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. So I have to pick the right tool for the job. Can I build a house with a hammer and a saw? Sure, but it may take a long time. So we have to pick the right technology to do the right job for us. And we'll talk more about that in a sec. I want to make sure that there's clinical research supporting that this device treats the indications that I'm really looking to, and that it's a primary indication of what it treats. When technologies get approved or cleared to treat certain indications, if they affect change in those indications, or there was a predicate device that treated those indications, they very likely get a 510K, an equivalent type approval, which says that the device is safe and clinically it does very similar things. But that doesn't mean it's the core competency of that piece of equipment exactly. So it may be, anytime we use lots of heat in the tissue and we get some absorption, we're going to create change. But is it really for the primary thing? So, and does the research support that? We look at the FDA as a measure of efficacy. Again, if there's been predicate devices that the FDA has approved, then the second company only has to come in and prove safety. So, but this is the barometer of safety and efficacy for us. It's not to say that off-label, lots of these things don't do amazing things, but again, in the clinical research, we would see that beyond the FDA approvals, especially if it's an FDA approval for something general like heating skin tissue or activating muscle or those types of things. Check with your state regulations, make sure you can be insured for this and that the provider that's going to be either delegated or responsible can get covered in insurance for it. So how do I pick the actual energy? Well, this is hard. This is hard. So first of all, we went through all these things in choosing the procedures that we wanted. So where do they overlap the most? Which energy device is going to deliver and again, a core competency, the number one thing I want this device for. If you're going to be 80% happy with the device, you have to be 100% happy with using that device for a specific procedure. So rather than getting 80% of the goals that you're looking for with lots of different things, make sure that you're at the very least getting 100% with the core competency. And then the peripheral competencies are also of a high enough number that you feel confident. Otherwise, over time, you will not recommend this stuff to patients. The delivery device, the bells and the whistles, these things matter. How heavy is the handpiece? Is it a fiber optic? Is it a different delivery type system that maybe an articulating arm that doesn't break as much? Is there a consumable expense to that? Next, I want to look at return on investment. So is one piece of equipment cost a lot more than a different piece of technology, where one of these I'm going to be able to recoup my costs in X amount of time and the other in Y. And then what are the differences between those and how does that work out for me? I always think about financing versus lease versus, purchase versus renting. Renting is a terrific way to mitigate risk, especially if you're not sure you have a patient population to support the purchase. So it may be beneficial to you to try to rent something 2, 3, 4 months, typically from a third party rental company, not through the manufacturer, but rent something similar at least, and recruit patients for it. Once you have these rental days, if you're able to fill up those days consecutively, the cost of that day bringing in the equipment will be equal probably to a month's finance payment if you did it in a 5-year type program. So I always also think about cash flow versus total cost. So how much is this going to cost me each month, and how much dollars can I generate with it? And in that case, that's where I'll choose to either finance this or purchase it outright with our own dollars. Right now, with interest rates being so low, it's really difficult to want to use cash and make a $100,000 investment. I'd rather make a $2,000 investment over 60 months and mitigate the risk that way. But again, renting is another way to do that. Lease, we don't see very much anymore, but it's leaving a residual payment at the end, a certain percentage. Usually that percentage is 10% or less now, which doesn't make lease very worthwhile. So unless it has to be because we don't want long-term liabilities on the balance sheet, on the balance sheet, we generally wouldn't look at leases. And then lastly, training and warranty. The delivery from your person who's coming in to do the training. Are you really confident with that apparatus? If one has training DVDs and another sends an RN in for 2 days, they're wildly different, and your success with one versus the other will more likely happen with the hands-on. So it's important to weigh that in. I think that the cost of that of a day is probably $2,500 to $3,500. So if you have a couple of days of training, certainly factor that into your ROI and decision making. And then warranty, if you're getting 2 years with one manufacturer and 3 years with another, the cost of an annual warranty in most of these machines is 8 to 10% of the original purchase price. So when you look at it from that standpoint and say, okay, $100,000 machine, I'm in this $1,000 a month towards warranty, a device with 3 years that costs $20,000 more over that 3 years may end up really costing less because of the cost of the warranty. Lastly, and really importantly, although I think a lot of this is done, we'll talk about this in planning for success, our part 4. How do I implement new technology? What are some of the steps that I take to do that? But what kind of marketing support do they have? What kind of customer support do they have? Do you have access to ads and pictures and templates and different digital marketing tools that you can give to your own people or recreate? Is there some adjunct marketing package that comes with the device that you feel really good about or comfortable? If you can bring back the value of the device in the first year, you've done amazingly well. Thank you again for joining us for another part 2 of Buying Smart, Buying Safe. Next edition, part 3, we're going to dive more into the financing. Do I lease? Do I rent? Do I use cash? How do I come up with the financial parts of this? We're going to be touching on negotiation strategies as well with your rep. And then in part 4, after you've made the decision on the equipment, getting off to a good start implementing. Thank you very much. If you like this, please share it with your friends. If you need any help purchasing equipment, please contact us at businessofesthetics.org. Our team can help you identify the right pieces of equipment all the way through the negotiation and implementation process. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.